Imagine if the mug of joe on your table right now, the drink you have enjoyed for decades, was actually either secretly safeguarding your glucose levels or quietly nudging you toward a diabetic state. Not a pill, not a script, not some rare superfood from a distant land, simply coffee. Here is the reality most folks over 60 fail to grasp. Coffee itself is not the issue. It has never been the issue. The issue is the timing, the method, and the ingredients you are mixing in. And today, I will demonstrate exactly what current research indicates, because this is more than just a personal view. Scientists from some of the globe's leading medical centers have spent decades examining the link between coffee and glucose in older populations specifically. The results are incredible, and almost no one is discussing them correctly. I am Dr. LANA, and if you are visiting for the first time, this channel focuses on one goal: providing you with authentic, transparent, science based data. And in this presentation, I will guide you through the 3 coffee routines that are secretly raising your sugar every single day. And then I will reveal the precise coffee habit that can assist your system in managing blood sugar more efficiently starting tomorrow morning. Stay with me until the conclusion, because the final habit I describe, the one involving a specific 20-minute gap before your food, entirely shifted how I advise my clients. It is that impactful. The broad view, why this is vital for elders. Before we discuss the coffee details, I need you to grasp something that your practitioner might not have mentioned to you plainly. After turning 60, your system's talent for managing blood sugar shifts. Not because you made a mistake, it is simply biology. Here is what occurs. As we mature, 2 primary things change in our metabolism. First, our muscle density slowly declines, and muscle is a major tissue that pulls glucose from the circulation. Less muscle means your system has fewer spots to deposit that sugar after eating. Second, the beta cells within your pancreas, the cells tasked with creating insulin, become less capable over time. They are slower to act, and when your pancreas arrives late to the scene, glucose remains in your blood longer than it ought to. This is why the American Diabetes Association notes that seniors over 65 are the fastest growing segment receiving new diabetes labels. 1 in 4 citizens over 65 has some type of diabetes, and roughly half of all elders have prediabetes, raised blood sugar that has not yet hit the medical limit, but is moving there. The silent part of this narrative: most of those individuals have no clue. There are no sudden indicators at first, just a bit more exhaustion than you used to have, a little more thirst, some mental haze after midday, and gradually, quietly, the harm builds up. Now, why am I sharing all this before we even mention coffee? Because coffee, when utilized properly, interacts directly with both of those age-related shifts I just mentioned. The elements in coffee can help balance out a slowing insulin act. They can assist muscles in pulling glucose more efficiently, and they can delay the uptake of sugar from the items you consume. But, and this is vital only if you consume it the right way. If you are mixing sugar in, drinking it on a void stomach, or consuming it at the wrong hour of day, you are erasing every single one of those perks and, in some instances, actively making your blood sugar worse. But before we explore, a fast query for the feedback area. Which town or nation are you observing from today? I check every single post, and I love knowing who is in this group with me. Let us analyze this: the logic behind coffee and glucose. Allow me to present 2 elements most folks have never heard of, even though they are consuming them every dawn. The first is chlorogenic acid. View chlorogenic acid as your digestive traffic officer. When you consume starches, bread, grain, fruit, anything carb-heavy, those items break down into glucose and enter your small bowel, where they are pulled into the blood. Typically, this happens quickly. That is what triggers those sharp post-meal peaks. Chlorogenic acid physically delays this uptake process. It blocks the enzyme labeled alpha-glucosidase, which is tasked with splitting complex carbs into basic sugars. Slow the enzyme, slow the rush. Your blood sugar climbs more slowly, which is much simpler for your maturing pancreas to handle. A major review featured in the publication Food and Function checked 28 distinct clinical trials and discovered that chlorogenic acid from coffee steadily lowered post-meal glucose peaks and boosted insulin sensitivity, especially in adults with struggling glucose control. That means elders with prediabetes or early stage diabetes notice the biggest perk. The second element is trigonelline. This one is less mentioned but equally interesting. Trigonelline has been shown in various trials to trigger pathways in your liver that help remove glucose from the circulation more effectively. Your liver plays a massive role in glucose management. It can either dump saved glucose into the blood or pull extra glucose and save it safely. Trigonelline pushes the liver toward the latter path. A 2022 trial featured in the European Journal of Nutrition discovered that trigonelline intake notably bettered fasting glucose levels in adults with metabolic syndrome, a state very frequent in folks over 60. And here is something stunning about coffee that most people miss. Caffeine-free coffee contains just as much chlorogenic acid and trigonelline as caffeinated coffee. This is vital for elders who are wary of caffeine or have been advised by their clinician to lower their use. The blood sugar perks of coffee have almost nothing to do with caffeine. They are sparked by these other elements completely. Now, I noted almost because caffeine does play a part, just not always a beneficial one. And that brings us straight to the errors. The three errors elders make with coffee. I want to mention a client I will call Walter. 74 years old, a former technician, sharp as a blade, and totally confused by his blood sugar stats. Walter had read about coffee's perks online. He was proud of his 3-mug-a-day routine. He strolled every dawn. He had reduced his bread. By all counts, he was doing everything correctly. And yet, his fasting sugar was stuck at 142. His A1C, the 3-month average, had risen to 7.3%. His clinician was discussing boosting his meds. When I sat with Walter and reviewed his day minute by minute, I spotted 3 things, 3 routines that were ruining everything else he was attempting. And when I reveal what they were, I want you to reflect honestly on whether any of them feel familiar. Error number 1, the first thing at dawn mug. Walter's buzzer went off at 6:15 a.m. By 6:20, he had the pot brewing. By 6:25, he was sipping his first mug, and before he had consumed a single item. This feels totally standard. Millions of people do it. But here is what is truly occurring in your system at that point. From roughly 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., your system is in something labeled the dawn phenomenon. Your adrenal centers are naturally discharging cortisol, your waking hormone, which prompts your liver to release stored glucose into the circulation. This is your system's way of giving you fuel to begin the day. It occurs whether you eat or not. Your fasting sugar is already raised in the early dawn hours. This is totally standard. Now, what does caffeine do? It triggers those same adrenal centers and boosts the cortisol surge, which tells the liver to discharge even more glucose. A trial featured in the British Journal of Nutrition monitored continuous glucose devices in fit adults and discovered that sipping caffeinated coffee first thing at dawn before eating boosted blood glucose by an average of 29 milligrams per deciliter compared to dawns when they skipped coffee. In individuals with insulin struggle, the peak was even higher. You have not consumed a single bite of food. Your blood sugar is already raised from the dawn phenomenon. And then you add caffeine on top, boosting the result further. This is why so many elders are puzzled when their fasting sugar is high at dawn despite eating carefully the previous night. It is not yesterday's feast. It is this dawn's coffee consumed at the wrong hour on a void stomach. The correction is basic, and I will provide it shortly. Before we proceed, share your name and where you are observing from. I check every post, and I would love to know who I am assisting today. Error number 2, the sugary additions. Walter's second error, 1 big spoon of sugar in every mug, plus on the weekends, a bit of flavored milk. I know 1 spoon does not feel like much, but think of this. 1 spoon of sugar is roughly 4 dri of pure sugar. It hits your circulation fast because there is no grit, no fat, no protein to delay it. In a coffee mug, it is essentially liquid sugar sent straight to your gut. And here's the harsh truth: you are sipping coffee specifically due to chlorogenic acid's power to delay sugar uptake. Then you drop raw sugar straight into that same beverage. The chlorogenic acid delays the digestion of complex starches. It does not cancel out direct sugar. You have just spiked yourself. A big review featured in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2024 studied coffee habits in over 200,000 adults and discovered that coffee without any extras was strongly linked with lower diabetes risk. But this shielding result was largely lost when coffee held added sugar. Sweetened coffee, the trial found, was metabolically similar to a soda rather than to black coffee. What about fake sweeteners? This is where it gets intriguing and a bit uneasy. A rising pool of data implies that common fake sweeteners like sucralose and aspartame can shift the gut flora, the group of microbes in your gut that plays a direct role in how your system manages sugar. A 2022 trial featured in Cell discovered that even brief use of sucralose and saccharin triggered visible changes in the gut flora and hindered glucose reactions in some subjects. The data is not totally closed, but there is enough proof here that I inform my clients, if you want the full sugar perk of your coffee, sip it black. If that feels impossible right now, try a tiny bit of raw stevia, the only sweetener that currently indicates a neutral to slightly helpful result on gut flora and sugar management. If you are still here with me and finding this useful, please type 2 in the feedback. It tells me you are watching and finding worth in this. Error number 3, the late midday or dusk mug. Walter's third error was one I observe regularly. He had a second mug at 3 p.m. and occasionally a third at 7 p.m. I have sipped coffee all my life. He told me, it does not even impact my rest anymore. Walter was mistaken about that, and I say that gently because most folks who believe caffeine does not impact their rest anymore are actually resting poorly. They just cannot recall what high-quality rest feels like. Here is the biology. Caffeine's half-life in your system is between 5 and 7 hours. But here is what most folks do not realize. As we mature, our liver enzymes that process caffeine become less capable. The half-life for many elders over 65 is closer to 8 or 9 hours. That 3 p.m. coffee, a serious amount of caffeine, is still moving in your mind at midnight. Why does this matter for glucose? Because the most vital time for sugar management is during deep, slow-wave rest. This is when your system restores insulin sensitivity, fixes insulin portals on your cells, and recalibrates your metabolic signals. Data featured in Diabetes Care discovered that even a single night of bad rest lowered insulin sensitivity the next day by up to 25%. Bad rest boosts cortisol, which boosts glucose. It sparks cravings for high-carb treats the next day. It lowers the drive to walk. Rest loss and sugar instability feed each other in a dark loop that most elders are secretly stuck in, partly due to a late midday coffee routine that feels safe. When I detailed all 3 of these errors to Walter, he was silent for a bit. Then he noted, "So the coffee was not helping me, it was hurting me the whole time." "Not totally," I informed him. "Coffee is still a stout metabolic partner, but only when it is working with your biology, not against it," and I revealed exactly how to manage that. 8 weeks later, his fasting sugar fell from 142 to 118. His A1C moved from 7.3% to 6.8%. His clinician called the progress incredible without any shift in meds. Let me reveal what we adjusted. Before I give the exact coffee plan, if this is helpful to you so far, do me a tiny favor and tap the like button. It helps this data reach more elders who could truly perk from it. And tell me in the feedback, do you currently sip your coffee dark or with something mixed in? I check every post, and I would love to know where you are beginning from. Right, let us discuss what to do. This is not a strict rulebook. It is a soft guide based on your system's natural daily clock. There are 3 slots where coffee has been shown to function most stoutly for glucose management in older adults. Slot number 1, the late dawn mug, 45 to 90 minutes after waking. Step 1. When you wake, do not grab coffee. Sip a full cup of water first. Allow your cortisol to peak naturally and start its slow drop, which occurs around 30 to 60 minutes after waking. Then consume something, specifically something with protein. This does not have to be complex. A boiled egg, plain thick yogurt, a tiny slice of cheese, even a few plain nuts. Why protein specifically? When you consume protein before caffeine, several things occur. First, amino acids from protein trigger the discharge of glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1, a signal that boosts insulin's power and slows stomach emptying, meaning food travels through your system more slowly. Second, protein dampens the cortisol reaction to caffeine, lowering the liver's sugar dump. Third, protein itself has almost zero impact on glucose, so you are giving your system fuel without a sugar peak. After your protein, then sip your dark black coffee. Here is a handy extra. If you can add a quarter spoon of cinnamon to your coffee at this point, do it. Ceylon cinnamon, not the common type, holds elements called type A procyanidins that partly copy insulin work and have been shown in many clinical tests to better fasting glucose. A review featured in the Journal of Diabetes Science and Technology discovered that daily cinnamon use lowered fasting sugar by an average of 10 mg/dl in folks with type 2 diabetes. That is not small, and it costs almost nothing. If you are still here with me and finding this useful, please type 1 in the feedback. It tells me you are watching and finding worth in this slot. Slot number 2, the pre-meal coffee, 20 to 30 minutes before lunch. This is the slot Walter had never heard of. I call it the metabolic prep slot, and it is one of the most ignored tools for post-meal sugar management. About 20 to 30 minutes before your biggest meal of the day, usually midday for elders, sip a tiny cup of dark black coffee. Here is what is occurring during that 20-minute gap. The chlorogenic acid and trigonelline are being taken into your gut wall. The alpha-glucosidase enzyme that breaks down starches is being partly blocked. Your liver is being prepared to handle incoming glucose more cleanly. Then, when you consume your lunch, you are eating into a prepared metabolic scene. A clinical trial done at the University of GE discovered that sipping coffee 30 minutes before a high-carb meal notably lowered the 2-hour post-meal glucose area under the curve. A sharp tool for how much your sugar peaks and for how long compared to skipping coffee or sipping coffee with the food. The timing counts. Coffee during the meal or after, it does not yield the same result. It is the pre-meal gap that lets the shielding elements set themselves up before the sugar hits. Slot number 3, the post-walk mug. This one needs a bit of lifestyle context, but I want to reveal it because it represents a truly stout blend that most folks have never heard of. If you do any type of physical move, a 20-minute stroll, a soft swim, some easy stretching with bands, there is a specific gap right after movement where your muscles are metabolically eager. During and after movement, your muscle cells open sugar gates called GLUT4. These are essentially portals in the cell wall that let sugar enter without needing insulin. It is one of the most stout natural tools for clearing sugar from the blood that exists in the human system. Data from the University of Bath discovered that sipping a fair amount of caffeinated coffee right after movement boosted this glut work, essentially stretching the muscle's sugar-pulling gap by an extra 30 to 45 minutes. So for elders who stroll in the dawn or midday, have your post-movement coffee within 30 minutes of ending your activity. Sip it black. Your muscles will utilize the caffeine to pull sugar more cleanly with or without insulin help. This blend of move plus post-movement coffee is truly one of the most glucose-friendly routines I know of, and it costs nothing. I want to tell you about one more client before we finish because I think her narrative is the one that will stay with you. Margaret was 69, a former bookkeeper. She visited me not because she had a diabetes label. Her stats were still in the pre-diabetes zone, but because she had watched her spouse endure the illness for 12 years, and she was afraid of taking the same road. Her usual dawn habit, wake up immediately, have 2 mugs of instant sweet coffee, skip breakfast, Then have a big bowl of oats with syrup around 10 a.m., midday coffee with a cookie. Dusks, flour tea with sugar. Her fasting sugar was 118. Her A1C was 6.1%. Not diabetic, but clearly moving in that direction. We made 5 shifts to her coffee routine. No med change, no crazy diet shift. 1. Traded instant sweet coffee for fresh bean, black. 2. Shifted the dawn coffee back by 60 minutes consumed after a cooked egg. 3. Started a tiny pre-lunch coffee 25 minutes before eating. 4. Cut the midday coffee totally and traded it for a brief 20-minute stroll. 5. Added a post-stroll herb tea in the dusk with no sugar. 12 weeks later, her fasting sugar was 98 normal. Her A1C fell to 5.7%. She called my clinic to say she felt, in her words, like I regained 10 years. Her drive was better. Her mental fog had lifted. She was resting more soundly. Margaret did not fix prediabetes with meds. She fixed it by matching her coffee routines with her biology. Before I end, I want to state something plainly because I think it matters. Everything in this video is based on featured clinical data, but every system is unique. If you are currently on diabetes meds, metformin, insulin, GLP-1 tools, or anything else, please do not shift your amount or quit taking anything based on this presentation. Share what you have picked up here with your clinician. Use it as a starting point for a talk, not as a replacement for medical care. A few other personal factors. If you feel heart racing, shakes, more worry, or broken rest from coffee, you might be a slow caffeine processor. This is set by a genetic code in the CYP1A2 enzyme. For slow processors, I suggest limiting to 1 mug of standard coffee per day or trading entirely to high-tier decaf, which keeps the chlorogenic acid and trigonelline that yield the metabolic perks. If you have acid issues, reflux, or a weak gut, sip your coffee after eating, not before. The pre-meal gap plan can be changed. Sip your coffee with rather than before your food if you have gut worry. If you have renal issues or have been told to avoid certain elements, check with your specialist about coffee use before making any shifts. The aim is to find your own version of this guide, not to follow it blindly regardless of how your system reacts. Let me provide the full map in one clear wrap-up. What not to do. Do not sip coffee the moment you wake. Your cortisol is already high. Do not add sugar of any type. You are breaking the shielding power of chlorogenic acid. Do not use fake sweeteners if you can help it. Use a tiny bit of raw stevia if you need sweet. Do not sip coffee after 2 p.m. if your rest is bad. Do not trust instant or packet coffee. Pick fresh beans when you can. What to do? Wake up, sip water, wait 45 to 90 minutes. Consume a tiny protein bit first, eggs, yogurt, cheese, nuts. Then have your black coffee, maybe with Ceylon cinnamon. About 20 to 30 minutes before your biggest meal, sip a tiny black coffee. If you move, sip a black coffee within 30 minutes of stopping. Keep it to 2 to 4 mugs max per day. That is it. No pills, no special buys, no massive lifestyle shift. Just coffee utilized smartly, timed well, kept pure. Your coffee routine already exists. We are not asking you to begin something new. We are asking you to adjust when and how you do something you are already doing every single day. And if Walter and Margaret's narratives show us anything, it is that those tiny shifts hold incredible strength. I am Dr. LANA. If this presentation gave you something helpful, please share it with someone you love, a spouse, a sibling, a parent, a peer who has been fighting with their sugar. You might be giving them a tool that shifts something real in their existence. And if you want to dig deeper, my following video details the 5 breakfast items that elders eat thinking they are fit, but that are secretly causing sugar peaks more than almost anything else. You will not want to miss it. Join, activate alerts, and I will see you there. Take great care of yourself. You deserve to feel good at every